Hello and welcome back everybody to the Foodbuild Factory, where today I wanna welcome you to the very first Foodbuild Thoughts video. Now, Foodbuild Thoughts will be a little serious that I just wanna start with this here video. How things are going to be is these are just general discussion videos where I just choose a broad topic and just give my thoughts and opinions on it. And this can vary quite dramatically. I do have some things planned from favorite weapons, favorite quest rewards to flaws in the build system or something. And for the first video I've done or I'm doing at the moment, I've chosen one topic that is something that could be quite interesting for those of you who follow my channel. And the topic is going to be 3 builds I never finished. Now, why this is going to be interesting is simply because, well, I'm sure every single YouTuber or something who does Fallout 76 builds has scrapped multiple builds, and to be honest, I've scrapped like 20 ideas or something. But sooner or later, every single idea I had, or most of them, just went through in some way or another. Sometimes I just had to scrap the idea and rework it a little bit. But some of these, or to be more precise, the 3 builds that I want to talk about in this video here are those that I wanted to do for a very long time, and I just can't, for the life of me, get them to work. Now, one of them specifically is one that I still think there is a way to do it, but yeah, I just can't get it to work. Now, let's get right into it. By the way, I'm going to show some minor gameplay in the background. Gameplay is just something I record from day to day gaming, just when leveling up characters or something. So view it as a little bit of a sneak peek, maybe into upcoming videos and so on. But they will not really, the gameplay will not really be related to the video. I'm not sure if it matches the description of a podcast, so to speak, but view it more as that. Just something you can play in the background while you're playing, and hopefully I did actually manage to buy a microphone. So just from a little bit of testing I did, I feel like the audio is quite okay. So finally, I think the Football Factory is coming together a little bit, and I hope the content gets more enjoyable. Now, we're already 3 minutes in and I haven't talked about the topic, so let's get right into it. Now, 3 builds I never finished. The first build I want to talk about is the Flare Gunner. The Flare Gunner, as you can probably expect, was a build that I planned that should revolve around the flare gun, which you can find in Fallout 76. It's a bit of a gimmick weapon. It serves no real purpose. Now it's a leftover from Fallout 4. In Fallout 4, the flare gun was this thing, and while you could theoretically use it as a weapon, it just did very little damage, and its main purpose was to call Minutemen to your help. If you were aligned with them, there was this chance that you can just fire it in the air, and some Minutemen turned up to help you out in the fight. For some reason, Bethesda left the flare gun in the game in Fallout 76, and I'm not quite sure why they did that. Now, maybe they had something planned for the weapon that didn't turn out. Maybe they overestimated how interactive players are and thought that maybe we will use it to call for help or something, but I mean, in an online game, there's like 20 better ways to do that than firing a flare gun in hopes that some high level player comes to your help or something. And I thought there must be some way to utilize this weapon. Now, there wasn't any particular approach to the situation. I just wanted to make a video about it, using it, and making it somewhat usable. Now, I didn't expect this weapon to be good or anything, but I thought that with crits and everything, with stealth attacks, maybe you could maybe get the weapon to work. However, it just wasn't enough. It became quite apparent pretty early on. Like, I had a heavy gunner, not a heavy gunner, gunslinger build, and while I didn't have any sneak perks at the time, I thought this was a good way to start off. I was just obtaining a flare gun. I had the plans to build them on one of my characters. Now, the plans can be bought from, I think, all the responder vendors for relatively cheap. We're talking about something like 200 caps or something. And if I recall correctly, now it is a little bit since I tried this build, so I can't remember 100%, but I think the craftable version is only a level 1. However, I have a slight feeling in my head that you could find higher level versions like level 5 or level 10 in the wild, but that could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. Anyways, um, whatever flare gun I got my hands on now, obviously there aren't legendary versions. Now I'm pretty sure on PC you could actually um, find some, but from my experience with the weapon, even a bloodied explosive one wouldn't do anything. So yeah, it was quite apparent using it that even stealth couldn't save it. However, I was working on a stealth gunslinger at the time, so I thought, yeah, I'm gonna revisit it. Now, long story short, a month later or so, I really had a gunslinger build that I was quite proud of and that worked very well with most weapons for a gunslinger, that's being said. And I tried to revisit the flare gun. It just, yeah, it's too weak. What should I say? I think we're talking about something like the, the best thing I got with a low health stealth build, sneak attacks, VATS crits, um, adrenal reaction, everything coming together. Like the best I could do was 25 damage or something. Having to reload after every single shot, which wasn't a big problem since the reload animation is quite fast. And a reload combined with a shot still doesn't take all that much action points. So I was testing the weapon first on I think it was some ghouls in Flatwoods. So level 50 ghouls, and I managed to kill 3 ghouls or something with only the flare gun. However, that alone took me like 3 minutes or something, and stealth wasn't a thing, by the way. It did work relatively well as long as I could keep range. However, yeah, it's just not a stealth weapon. Think of it like using a hunting rifle without a suppressor. Now, if you have a good sneak character, a good stealth character, you can get away with it, but not for long, and you really have to be cautious. So, stealth, fall through, yeah, no damage for the weapon, no hidden effects or anything, nothing you could really say worked. Now, if any one of you found a niche use for the flare gun, I'd be very happy to hear about it. Now, the only use I could think of for the flare gun is maybe if you are a melee character and you want to carry something to cripple Scorch Beast or something, you could potentially invest into the Gunslinger perk that gives you a chance to cripple enemies. However, I'm not quite sure why you would do that because yeah, you could ultimately just use Enforcer or anything, to be honest. And yeah, the only benefit from the flare gun would be that it's light and its ammo isn't particularly heavy or hard to craft, but yeah, that's about it. Not a lot to say about this one here. Not the most interesting on this list, but yeah, I just wanted to say it because yeah, the flare gun is completely useless, and I just wish there was a better use for it or any use really. I also don't see why this weapon is so bad. Like I'd even think it could be a cool weapon if it had decent damage, and I wouldn't see anything wrong with it. Like having a single shot pistol that deals quite a good amount of damage wouldn't be a wrong thing, and I feel like a flare gun could be a useful weapon in a post-apocalyptic scenario. So, if anything, I'd like to see a better version of the flare gun. Could be cool. However, that's it. Now, the second build on this list here is the one I was referring to when I entered the video, and this is the Basher build. The Basher build was something I really wanted to do ever since I started the the channel. I even had it in my channel description for the longest while that this will be one of the examples of the very silly builds, because it was very clear the Basher build wouldn't be something great, but I really thought it was a it was a workable idea. I really thought there was some ways to do it, but working on it, this is one of those that I revisited like 5 times or something, with new ideas and everything. And every time I tried to get this build to work, I just encountered some problems that I couldn't overcome. Now, the first and most apparent problem is the damage. Like, pretty obviously, bashing damage in Fallout 76 is just very weak. Now, from all I can tell, from what I've tried and everything, there's a lot of rumors about bashing damage, what does increase it, what doesn't, and everything. And just from my observation, it seemed like strength didn't ultimately do anything to bashing damage. The gun weight did, a more heavy gun increases the bashing damage. For the longest while, I thought that legendary effects actually carried over to the bashing damage. However, using an instigating weapon with the bashing damage didn't seem to work, so I'm not quite sure. So, yeah. My approach to this build, the one that was most promising, let's start with that one. The idea was to make kind of a World War One inspired character, someone with a trench coat or something, and something like a trench warrior. I wanted to use a bayoneted dragon or black powder rifle with the instigating effect and make it a stealth character where I would sneak up on enemies, and my hope was that combining instigating effect with the bayonet, um, with high strength, I thought that maybe if I used the ninja perk, that would probably increase the damage that I could one shot most mobs. Speaking to everything up to higher level ghouls, and then use the black powder rifle as an emergency or for ranged combat. This was the approach, and in my head, or on paper better, it felt like a good idea. It felt like it would work out quite well. Obviously, the Basher perk would be part of it, and I actually invested quite a lot of perks and resources to prepare this build, just to find out that it didn't work at all. First and foremost, the most baffling thing I noticed was that bashing didn't seem to be silent. Like stabbing someone with the bayonet just immediately put me into caution, into danger every time. So that was a bit of a bummer. I expect what happens is that with a suppressed weapon, this wouldn't happen. Like I think the game actually counts the bash attack like it is an attack from the weapon. So therefore, even though you don't hear a gun sound or anything, the game thinks you shot your black powder rifle, and therefore enemies react. This is how it felt like. I'm not quite sure, but ultimately it doesn't matter. It just didn't work. It was a really stealthy character, by the way. I had no problem. I'd better be off with just shooting the weapon, to be honest, and keeping some range. Um, Even more, even if I get a initial sneak attack, yeah, the damage was just pathetic. Like with the Basher perk, with high strength, instigating effect, and a bayonet, which specifically is there to improve the bashing damage. I was able to. I think it was like 1/4 of a ghoul's health, a level 75 ghoul at the golf court. Um, yeah, it would have taken me like 6 bashes or something to kill him. So, yeah, that was off the drawing table pretty quickly. I then thought like, hey, let's try a heavy weapon. Just try a really heavy weapon and see if that works out. Now, I used a Gatling laser, I think, that had bashing damage that I just found like at the day actually. And yeah, it did a little bit more. However, yeah, bashing field felt slower. And ultimately, since I wanted to do a character completely designed around bashing, I didn't want to use a weapon I just carry for bashing that didn't make sense, if that makes sense. Like having a black powder rifle with a bayonet on it, that could that wouldn't feel wrong, if you get what I'm saying. But running around with the Gatling laser while not using it felt a bit stupid, to be honest, and looked stupid, and it is stupid. So yeah, I ignored that. Now I hear what you're saying. I mean, I'm not oblivious to the fact that the bashing minigun exists, and this is something I just wanted to talk about a little bit. Very obviously, there's one bashing build in the game that works super well actually, and that is a minigun with the shredder mod. That alone, the basic minigun with the shredder mod, actually is very powerful at the moment. Like if you do that with the bashing damage legendary effect with the vampires minigun using no ammo, you can just tear through enemies. It's basically the chainsaw we never got, which is a shame. I purposefully didn't make a video about that though, for the simple reason that it's quite widely covered. Like it was always good. The thing is, the minigun got destroyed very quickly before the patches. Like from I think it's about 2 months ago at this point, where condition damage was changed. And nowadays, yeah, it's a super cool build, super fun. However, yeah, as I said, it's pretty widely covered, and ultimately, you don't really need a build for it. It's basically just that the shredding mod for the minigun works so well. So if you really want to go down that route, you can take that. However, another thing why I didn't want to do it is it ultimately didn't feel like it would fit the idea behind a bashing build. I also wasn't opposed to the idea of not having a pure bashing build, but having something that having a build where bashing actually helps you, like where it's just more of a supportive role. However, yeah, there's one instance where I could see the gun being the bashing effect being useful, and that is you do have a chance to cripple enemies. So yeah, let's say you are a shotgunner and an enemy comes close and you bash it, or a rifleman or something. However, the thing is, the chance is way too low. Like you'd have to hit an enemy like 10 times or something to make sure he's crippled, and at that point you're better off um, just killing him instead. And also, you do have better options for pretty much every single weapon class with other perks like Enforcer for shotguns. So yeah, ultimately, sadly, I never came up with a bashing build that really worked. It's one of those builds that I'm still trying to work on. Every now and then I do have another idea on how to start one. So the idea isn't completely off the table. Maybe we will see one day, but so far it was just a very frustrating experience to try and get a basher build to work. So this was a bit more interesting. And the last build on my list here that never really made it into the food build factory is the Pacifist. Now, Pacifist is a very broadly used term here. I mean, it was completely obvious that in this game, a pacifist, like we know from Fallout New Vegas, for example, is just not possible. What I meant by doing a pacifist build is that I wanted to make a build centered around the Whisperer, Animal Friend, and robotic expert perks. So I really went through the process of acquiring. I think I hit the second rank of both Wasteland Whisperer and Animal Friend, and rank 3 of Robotic Expert. And the idea behind it was to make a shotgunner, I think it was. It doesn't work with melee weapons. You really have to have a gun so you can aim an enemy and pacify him or whatever. And the idea was to just even out the playing field a little bit. So I would spot out a camp, pacify as much creatures as I could, as much enemies as I could, and then shoot the rest. So that was the basic idea behind it, to just say I wanted to minimize casualties, if that makes sense. Um, the thing that I encountered that really threw me off a little bit is that even though the chances are quite good, like I thought they were even overperforming. Um, Honestly, with only rank 2 of Wasteland Whisperer and Animal Friend, I actually managed to, on average, I say, pacify half of my enemies. However, what I encountered is that after a certain time, enemies aggro again. Now, they aren't permanently pacified towards you, which is kind of a shame. It's a bit useless. It makes the whole thing a bit useless. So, once I realized that, I thought, okay, maybe I could make use of the situation by pacifying as much as I could, killing the other ones, and before the pacified creatures turn against me again, I could use the situation to maybe lay mines on their feet. That was an idea I had, to just say, okay, I make a build that carries a generic pistol or something that isn't meant to damage or something, just to pacify creatures. And my only way of dealing damage would be to lay mines at their feet and waiting for them to turn hostile again and immediately blow off. However, yeah, now that I'm saying it out loud, I think the same as you. It is a stupid idea. It just didn't work ultimately, and you can only lay two mines simultaneously, and creatures are moving around and everything. It just, I couldn't find a real use for the pacification builds, for the pacification perks. Now, I am aware that with rank 3 of them, you can permanently pacify some creatures and bring them to your camp, or rather, tell them to go there. However, there are very specific rules. Like from what I've seen online, the rules there are, it has to be a single creature, so not a part of a group, that spawns in a random encounter location. And yeah, there are some arbitrary rules, so there's tons of guides on how to get your farm animals and such. So if you've seen those, you know what I'm talking about. Ultimately, it didn't really work out. Now, maybe I will revisit the build at one point in time. However, while it certainly worked in a way, the main problem was that it doesn't give you any benefit, because the thing is, even while I was doing it, I thought, okay, maybe the good thing about it is that just you can just reduce the amount of enemies taking on you at the same time. So if you're kind of a bit more squishy, not a tanky character, and you don't use stealth though, you can just pacify a lot of creatures and basically reduce the amount of incoming damage by half, because only half of the enemies that you're fighting with shoots you actually. But then the thing is, yeah, you still have to aim at them to pacify them, and if you have a solid build in the time you're pacifying them, you could also have killed them. So I yeah, I just don't know what these perks are about. Like, it seems the only use they have is to maximize or to um, upgrade them to their max level, and use that to get one. I think you can only even have one ally at your camp, in a way, like one pacified creature or something. So the existence of these builds, of these characters, is kind of a mystery to me. Now, the only perk of those three that I mentioned, Animal Friend, Wasteland Whisperer, and Robotics Expert, that I actually thought about using again after this little experiment, was the Robotics Expert perk. And the reason I thought about it was for I think it was a gunslinger, where the thought was being quite squishy, but always but not using stealth. There were some, especially some robots that could really kill me and give me trouble. Assaultrons mainly. So the thought was that if I'm encountering a group of robots, I could pacify the assaultron to deal with the other enemies in the meantime, and then have a more controlled situation where I'm taking on the assaultron. That was the idea, but yeah, that was basically it. Now, I could see a use in these perks if maybe they would change it so that not only the enemies would turn uh, pacified against you, but would also be frenzied so they attack others. This could be a little bit of a use. Now, I'd argue that probably it'd still be better off just. Therefore, my pacifist, you can see it. I'm still new to YouTube. You know, like I literally sat in front of my um, microphone and made quotation marks with my fingers. Now I feel a bit stupid, but anyways, um, this was it for the first little video. Obviously, being a new format, I'm kind of getting used to this, but I really look forward to more topics. And I just choose this one to start off simply because it was a bit easy. I could speak a little bit out of my head. I have some little spreadsheets for the other topics, but they are certainly a bit more in depth and require a little bit more structure. So I wanted to start off with this one simply to get into it a little bit. It's basically a little way to test my new microphone. I really hope that this will be a more enjoyable experience. If you have interest in such things, I'd be very glad. Also, this is the perfect situation for you to just give me a little comment. You know, I'm not making all these YouTuber shit where I say follow my channel and such. So I don't say comment so that my algorithm is better or anything, but yeah, I'd really love to include you a little bit more. And if you have some topic you want to talk about, or even some thoughts that you may want to see recorded or anything, let me know. I'm happy to talk about. Another little video I want to make, which will possibly have more than one part over time, is something like Foodbuild fuck ups, where basically, if you follow my comment section a little bit, every now and then people point out very good points. I'm not flawless in any way, so I do make a lot of mistakes. And rather than just talking about those during my gameplay when recording builds, I thought that maybe it would be a good idea to just make a video about it, where I pick some of these mistakes that I made that were pointed out by you guys, and yeah, explain what went wrong or just correct the mistake. So, anyways, this was my first little video in this kind of situation. So, I hope you enjoyed it, guys. I'm really looking forward to the next ones, and see you guys. Bye.